Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. In this technical analysis of the stock market video, I call it in the blink of an eye. Why is that? Because this market can move very, very fast. And in the blink of an eye, things can turn on the dime like they did on Thursday. And then again, like they did on Friday. What's that old Wall Street saying? It takes volume to build stocks up, but they can fall under their own weight. All right, let's start off. We're going to take a look at the Nasdaq Composite today. First, we're going to do the side-by-side view. I'm going to look at the sectors with my ETF dashboard. Then I'm going to look at the Nasdaq Composite, the Nasdaq 100, the Qs. Look at the McClellan Oscillator and see what it's telling us. And then I want to look at JP Morgan's, they had earnings out on Friday. XLY, Consumer Discretionary, it was the worst looking of the 11 sectors. I thought it was the worst looking price action on Friday. And then SPX, which looks like an intermediate top may be being put in. So we're going to take a look at these. All right, so let's start off here. The Dow was actually up this week. Kind of an interesting situation with the indices. We had a couple. The Dow was up, the Dow Industrials and the Dow Transports were up. The Dow Industrials were up 338, but the S&P 500 down 56 and the Nasdaq Composite down 331. Now, these other two, the Industrials and the S&P, had both taken out the June lows. The Nasdaq Composite was sitting there and not doing it until this week. Well, starting on Monday, they broke below the June lows and then just continued to push lower. So that's the picture. That's what's going on there. Let's take a look at the side-by-side of the industrials and the transports. The transports were actually up 2606. So a little bit of consolidation type view. I mean, this isn't any kind of a bullish candle for the week. That's a, kind of just a sideways, not really sure which way it wants to go, doji candle. Okay, that's really the message that you're getting out of it. And the similar type picture with the industrials, although not so much of a doji type candle as we got on the transports. All right, let's take a look at the Nasdaq Composite. But before I go to the Nasdaq Composite, I want to take a look at two other things. The first thing I want to look at is I want to show you this tweet by Charlie Bilello that I came across. Okay, we are in 6th place right now. There are 5 years that after 198 trading days that were worse than we are this year, but we're not doing so great. Down 24.8%. And what years are we talking about? Great Depression, Great Financial Crisis, Great Depression Part 2. .com bubble burst. And this year, 1974, that was literally the midpoint of cycle wave 4 from 1966 to 82. And, here we are. And then when you look and say, well, what was the price return for the rest of the year? You can see all 4 out of the 5 continued to get worse for the remainder of the year. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. All right, I want to take a look at that ETF dashboard before we go to the NASDAQ. So last week we had 12 sectors up and 4 down. This week, totally the reverse. We just flipped. The leader, the upside, consumer staples, a little conservative type play. And then the leader of the downside, semiconductors. Wow. I mean, they just continued to get smashed, and they are the leader for the year to the downside. Energy is still the strongest and the only sector that's positive. And half of these 16 sectors I'm showing, I know we have 11 S&P sectors. Some of these are subsectors in here. Half of these are greater than 30% down. Okay, and we're just talking about since January 1st. And then here's what happened with the index ETFs. We had the industrials and the transports slightly positive in here. Nasdaq 100 continues to lead to the downside as it is doing for the whole year. So that is the picture there. All right, now let's take a look at the Nasdaq Composite. Okay, here's the weekly and daily view on the Nasdaq Composite. And so here's that weekly view again. Over here, I'm actually got the 200-week moving average on the Nasdaq Composite. And you can see for the 4th week in a row, we are well below that 200-day. The 10-day exponential, or 10-week exponential, is about to break below that 200-week in here. And I've seen in the past some, pretty interesting and negative results when that starts to happen. All right, so here's what happened here on the Nasdaq Composite on Friday, down 327.76. Pretty much what you call dark cloud cover, very bearish type thing. And I saw this on the Russell 2000 too, and the Nasdaq and the Russell 2000, and that the way it closed was well below the midpoint of the previous body. So a little more negative than what we saw on the S&P. Okay, so let's drill down and take a look at the Elliott wave picture that we've got. I continue to hold that we are in minor 3 of intermediate 3. And that within minor 3, we're doing the 3rd minute wave. So, we're talking about being in the midst of a third of a third of a third type of thing, price action, which should get pretty vertical and pretty strong in its price action. Now, the alternate count says, no, wait a minute, not so fast. Maybe this was minor wave 1 right here at the low on Thursday. Now, I know we have some divergences showing up. And so, yeah, you look at that, you pay attention to that. Divergence can always go away, so you need follow through to continue to the upside. Well, we sure didn't get much follow through after the reversal on Thursday, right? Okay, you gap down, come all the way back up, gap. You open up, you gap up above the high. The high, there goes my voice. Above the high on Thursday, and then we just reverse right on back down. So we'll see what kind of follow through do we get Tuesday and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So let's look underneath the covers here, and let me pull this over, and I'm looking at the 65-minute chart. So here's what I'm looking at with this. Okay, so I continue to believe that this is working its way down in minuet level wave 1. So we're within the 3rd wave here. So what's interesting to me is this rally after we gapped down on Thursday and we came back up and then we continued into Friday. Okay. Is this a 5-wave move? And why am I asking that question? Because if this is a zigzag type thing, or something stronger, then you expect a 5-wave move for the first wave up. This looks like a 3-wave move to me. This doesn't look like a 5-wave move. And then the other thing I'm watching is, on a zigzag, again, when you come up like this, A, B, C on a zigzag, the B wave normally retraces 50 to 79%. Okay, so now I'm watching to see, do we continue to come down here and retrace more than that? So how much have we retraced? Well, right now, we're over 61.8%, and here we are rapidly approaching that 78.6% level, or 79 when you round it, right? So to me, we get below this level, then it's going to be confirming that, I think that we're heading south. And of course, you get below that level, you're probably going to take out that Thursday low fairly quickly. So we'll see what kind of follow through do we get Monday, Tuesday. Okay, so that's the way it looks to me. Let's take a look at the Qs. Actually, we're seeing the same picture. The same picture on the Qs. The numbers are a little bit different, but it's the same kind of picture when I look at the 65-minute chart coming up in here in that first move up. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. I'm counting this as a 5-wave move down for wave 1. Okay, now if you go to the alternate, then you could say, well, okay, this would be a 5-wave move for the 5th wave. And you would count it as this, right? The alternate would say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll see what happens in here. We'll see, do we get the downside acceleration? Do we get this, the stocks falling under their own weight type of moves? That's what we're looking at. I know we got more earnings starting to come out this week, and everything's just going to accelerate. We get, and even the week after that, a lot of the big tech companies and Apple and everything are coming out with earnings. So that is the picture I've got on the Nasdaq 100 and the Nasdaq Composite. Now I want to take a look at the McClellan Oscillator. All of a sudden my mind was drawing a blank. It's like, okay, what are we talking about next? We are just slightly oversold, minus 101. So we've come down in here. When I look at the breadth, this is where I keep track of the advancing and declining issues on the New York, and I look at the breadth down in here, 10-day moving average of the breadth, and then the numbers that come out as a result of that. So the McClellan Oscillator, when you get below minus 150, you're severely oversold. And this is the zero line right in here. So we're just sitting here at minus 101. But what's really interesting is the Summation Index, which is a cumulative accumulation of the oscillator. It is sitting at minus 2830 when you round it. This is only 2 points off the March 24, 2020 low of minus 2832. But when you go back to 2008, the first time we got this low and actually got lower was on July, looking at my data here, July 11th, 2008, minus 2873. And then it continued to be as low as minus 4087. So yeah, it can get a whole heck of a lot worse back in October, at the end of October of 2008. So right now we're on the verge of taking out, on the Summation Index, taking out the March 2020 low. So I think this is really painting a pretty negative picture and implications for the stock market. All right, that's the McClellan Oscillator. Let's take a look at JP Morgan. Okay, JP Morgan had earnings out on Friday. They liked it. They liked what they saw. So here's the big action on Thursday. Here's the follow through on Friday. Although I'll tell you, when I look at that price action, the way that is, that's not real attractive to me. Okay, that looks somewhat negative. We'll see what kind of follow through we get this coming week. But yeah, I know this is kind of messy. Let's take a look at the weekly view and just show you what all this noise is in here. Okay, so here's a big gap that JP Morgan has come down and filled. It almost did it in July, and then it completely filled it here in September. We're bouncing around a little bit. We broke during the week this week. We broke this long-term trend line on JP Morgan. And again, we'll see, does it come back and fall through to the downside here after breaking that trend line? Okay, so that is the picture on JP. Let's go take a look at, I wanted to look at XLY because the consumer discretionary, of all 11 of these sectors, this was the most negative price action in here for Friday. Why do I say that? Because look how got almost completely bearish engulfing. It got really, really close to closing below where Thursday's opened. Okay, down 5.25 for the day on Friday. So that is, to me, is pretty negative price action. And one of the consumer discretionary type stocks that I've been watching, I follow every day, is Starbucks. Now, to me, this is, I know, kind of just an intermediate leg up in here, but this broadening top really caught my attention. And since that broadening top, I mean, yeah, it's come down hard initially, then it's been chopping sideways, but pretty negative move here on Friday. We'll see what kind of follow through do we get, and do we break this trend line. The top here, to me, the classic confirmation is you get a close below this low right here. So we'll see if we get that. Right now, it sure looks like it's trying to top out and roll over. All right. That's it for this weekend. It's going to be interesting price action this coming week in the blink of an eye. We'll see what happens. Everyone, if you felt like the video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, hit that little subscriber button and ring that little bell. Click that little bell to get notifications when I post the video. And if you'd like more of this information on a regular basis, head on over to joehenches.net. Check out the website and the membership. Everyone have a great week. We'll talk to you on the next video.